There comes a subtle yet devastating moment when a woman senses that something has shifted. The man who once felt so close begins to drift away. His messages come with delays, his words sound colder, and it's no longer easy to capture his attention. At that moment, a shadow of anxiety, fear, and a sense of loss descends upon her, slowly consuming her from within. Driven by a deep fear of losing him, many women make the most human, yet the most counterproductive, mistake. They start doing more. They send more messages, seek out, they explain, suggest meeting up, try to rekindle what they feel is slipping away. But this persistence, though rooted in love and fear, only speeds up the fall. Why? Because to a man, excessive need isn't attraction, it's pressure. It doesn't feel like love, it feels like a burden. Jung, in his book, The Dynamics of the Unconscious, explains that whatever the soul clings to too tightly has a tendency to slip away, like sand through your fingers. The more neediness we express, the faster we risk losing what we're trying so hard to hold on to. That which we often. What many don't realize is that in male psychology, what's hard to attain is valued more. A man feels greater desire for what he senses he could lose, not for what he believes is guaranteed. A woman who is too available, too attentive, who leaves no room for absence, eventually becomes emotionally invisible. Excess kills mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of desire. Imagine a precious gem placed on constant public display. Over time, it begins to lose its value in the eyes of those who see it. But if that gem is rare and unique, what is hard to obtain becomes desirable, almost sacred. That's how human desire works. That's how male desire works. Today, I'm going to show you how to radically shift this dynamic, not through cheap games or manipulation, but through deep emotional wisdom. You will learn the art of strategic silence, not as a punishment, but as an act of self-love. You'll understand how to redirect all that energy back into yourself until you become so whole, so magnetic, so fulfilled, that if he returns, it will be his free choice, not a result of your pleading. It's the result of pressure, and if he doesn't come back, you will gain someone far more important, yourself. Get ready, because once you truly understand this, you will never chase a man again. You will learn how to attract him. When a man starts to pull away, the first emotional reaction many women experience is a deep sense of loss. It's not just the loss of the man himself, but the loss of the illusion, the imagined future moments, the emotional safe haven his presence once symbolized. This loss, though intangible, hits with brutal force. Anxiety creeps in quietly. Every minute without a response feels like an eternity. Every cold or distant conversation is analyzed and reanalyzed, searching for signs, explanations, someone to blame. The mind falls into an endless loop of thoughts. What did I do wrong? How can I fix this? How do I get things back to the way they were? With every thought, the heart tightens even more. Jung, in his work Psychological Types, warns us that a person suffers because they mistakenly perceive what is happening within them as something happening outside of them. In other words, we believe that the source of our suffering lies in another person, when in reality, it is an inner conflict between our unfulfilled desires and our perception of our own worth. This anxiety and helplessness are not only painful, they are emotionally dangerous. Under their influence, many women do things they would never do in a balanced emotional state. They beg for attention, press for answers, search for meaning in silence. And the more a person acts from fear and need, the more the man's perception of the woman begins to shift. The situation worsens because, due to his instinctive psychology, a man does not feel drawn to someone who seems to need him in order to survive. Neediness carries the scent of desperation, and desperation repels desire. As Jung insightfully notes in The Psychology of the Unconscious, desire is born from mystery, from longing, from the space between the self and the other. not from control or possession. So, without even realizing it, when we try to force a connection that feels like it's slipping away, we end up tearing it even further. We long to get closer, but in that desperate attempt, the farther he pulls away, the stronger our urge becomes to hold on, but the fear of losing him only drives him further. That's why the first step is to do nothing. The first step is to stop breathing for him. Acknowledge the pain, but don't act from it, because every action driven by fear becomes another brick in the wall that now separates us from what we long for. Stopping in the middle of anxiety is an act of tremendous courage, and paradoxically, it's the first true act of self-love. Not love directed at him, but love directed at yourself. In the face of the fear of losing a man who is beginning to drift away, many women believe that the solution lies in trying harder. It's an almost instinctive impulse. If I'm more attentive, more loving, more available, he'll remember why he loved me and come back. But this approach, while seemingly logical from the perspective of female emotional pain, actually goes against male psychology. Every extra message, every forced attempt to reconnect, every search for validation doesn't strengthen the bond, it weakens it. Because a man doesn't perceive it as love, he sees it as dependence. It's no longer a connection, it becomes. It's important to understand that people, both men and women, sense emotional vibrations long before they consciously process them. He pulls away, not because he's coldly analyzing you, but because something deep in his instincts is signaling that something has shifted. Carl Jung, in his book Symbols of Transformation, teaches that what we deny controls us, while what we accept transforms us. Denying the anxiety we feel pushes us toward desperate actions. But acceptance gives us the chance to transform it. When we refuse to accept the possibility of losing him, we become prisoners of fear, and that fear seeps into every word, every gesture, every attempt to hold on. The man, even without realizing it, begins to feel repelled by that energy. Imagine a flower for a moment. A flower doesn't chase after bees, doesn't beg to be pollinated. It remains open, radiant, and beautiful, allowing the bees to find it and appreciate it for what it is. That's what a woman's self-love should feel like, a calm strength, not a desperate chase. When a woman, she throws herself into writing, calls him, seeks out meetings, unconsciously sending a destructive message, "Without you, I'm not enough." And that message kills attraction at its root. The paradox is this: the more a woman tries to hold on to the connection through persistence, the faster she pushes the man away, because in the male psyche, the pursuit matters. They don't value what they perceive as guaranteed. Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, points out that the soul instinctively seeks what it does not yet possess. Obsessed, because desire holds his life force. A man craves what presents an emotional challenge, what he must continually pursue and win over. Forcing someone to stay is like trying to hold water in your hands by squeezing tighter. The more pressure you apply, the faster it slips away. It's an act of desperation that ultimately robs you of your emotional dignity. Neediness creates emotional dependence, and dependence inevitably destroys respect. When a man senses that a woman needs his presence in order to feel worthy, his instinct drives him to seek. He doesn't feel free because his subconscious tells him that what's there isn't genuine admiration. It's an invisible demand that suffocates him. That's why the most important thing is not to do more, not to chase him, not to beg for attention, and not to try to prove your worth. True power lies in stepping back, in reconnecting with yourself, and in no longer needing external validation. When a woman stops fighting to be chosen and starts choosing herself, everything changes. Her energy transforms. She is no longer a need, she becomes a gift. She stops being an obligation and becomes a choice, one that is impossible to resist, once the feminine soul realizes its worth, she begins to radiate a different frequency, a blend of serenity, mystery, and inner fulfillment that cannot be ignored. This energy not only draws men in, but it also acts as a filter, because a man who isn't ready for a woman in her full power won't be able to handle her presence. It's not about pretending to be indifferent or playing mind games, it's about truly transforming from within. That transformation silently says, I desire you, but I don't need you, I can love you, but I won't give up my soul just to keep you. And it's precisely in that moment, when you stop fighting, stop pleading, when you find your own center, that true magic happens. The man who senses your absence not as a tactic, but as a natural result of your self-love, begins to see something far more valuable in you than he ever did before, a free, powerful woman. And only then can a new connection emerge, one built not on fear, but on admiration, not on lack, but on genuine desire. The mistake of doing more just to avoid losing him can feel like the only option when you're in pain. But now you know the truth. You don't need to do more for him. You need to do more for yourself. There's a fundamental truth in human nature. We value most what we feel we might lose. This law governs not only economics, but also the world of emotions and relationships. What is offered in excess, what is always available, eventually becomes undervalued. Love, desire, and admiration are fueled by a sense of rarity, of pursuit, of possible loss, and this is even in male psychology. It shows up like this. A man values what he feels he cannot fully possess. He values what he has to continually earn. When a woman becomes too available, too predictable, too devoted, she unconsciously stops being an emotional challenge for him. And when there is no challenge, there is no pursuit. And without pursuit, attraction fades. Carl Jung, in his book, The Psychology of the Unconscious, explains that true desire is born from longing, and longing can only exist where there is emotional distance. When we become too close, too available, we kill the necessary distance that desire needs in order to bloom. Imagine a rare gemstone hidden deep within an inaccessible cave. Those who know it exists are willing to take risks and invest time and effort to reach it. Now imagine that same gemstone lying on an ordinary table, available to anyone without effort. Its perceived value changes, not because the gem itself is different, but because its rarity is no longer felt. The same thing happens in emotional dynamics. A woman who preserves her mystery, her inner world, her rich and independent life, becomes the treasure that's hard to reach. Not because she's playing games, but because her wholeness makes her inaccessible to anyone who hasn't earned the right to be close. Availability sends another dangerous signal in the dynamics of attraction. It says that your time, your attention, your love are available to anyone, unconditionally, without the need to earn them. In the male subconscious, this lowers your value. A man isn't just seeking love, he's seeking admiration. He wants to feel that he has earned something valuable, that his presence, his effort, and his devotion actually matter. If he feels he doesn't have to try, that your love is already guaranteed, his instinctive drive to pursue fades. Not because he's a bad person, but because it's part of his innate nature. Jung captures this perfectly in symbols of transformation. Passion ignites in the human heart when the object of desire is wrapped in mystery and just out of reach. When a woman disappears as an emotional challenge, desire often disappears with her. A woman's love often takes over all her time, attention, social life, and personal projects, and without realizing it, she places the man at the center of her existence. This devotion, though noble in intention, is destructive to attraction. A woman who stays active in her own world, maintaining friendships, pursuing her passions, and investing in her personal growth, sends a much more powerful message. I choose you because I want to, not because I need to. That kind of emotional freedom is incredibly magnetic. Want to be unforgettable to a man? Don't give yourself away to him completely. Your life gives him the opportunity to be a part of it, without making him the absolute center of your universe. He wants to orbit around you, not be your satellite. The ideal balance is showing genuine interest without dependence, expressing affection without rushing, offering your presence without unconditional availability. When a woman masters this art, being generous with her love but selective with her energy, her value in a man's eyes automatically rises. Not because she manipulated him, but because she restored his. The natural balance between giving and receiving, between presence and mystery. Remember, what is common is forgotten, but what is rare is cherished. You are not here to be easily obtained. You are here to be valued, admired, and above all, respected. When a woman senses that the man who feels special to her is beginning to pull away, her first natural, almost uncontrollable, impulse is to close that distance with words, explanations, justifications, or promises. This urge is born from a deep fear of losing what once felt unshakable. However, in the subtle art of inhuman relationships, there is a force far more powerful than trying to maintain strategic silence. We're not talking about silence filled with resentment, or used as a form of punishment. This isn't about ignoring someone to cause pain or manipulate them. It's about a conscious expression of emotional wisdom. As Jung described in The Dynamics of the Unconscious, resisting the impulse isn't suppression, it's transformation. True silence is the transformation of anxiety into serenity, of neediness into inner power. It's in silence that your true essence is revealed. A woman who invests in herself, the woman who keeps learning, who isn't afraid to grow, radiates an undeniable vibration of silent strength. She doesn't need to speak of her worth, she emanates it on the deepest level. The soul needs nourishment too. Rekindle true friendships, devote time to what inspires you, surround yourself with beauty, with art, with nature, with anything that reminds you that your life has a higher purpose than simply being loved by someone else. The energy that was once focused on him now becomes a centrifugal force, shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. The universe. And when a woman becomes her own universe, when her happiness no longer depends on external factors, something extraordinary happens. Her vibration rises to a level that not only attracts, but also filters, because not every man will be able to rise to meet the level of a woman who no longer needs to be chosen. It's no coincidence that when a woman focuses on her personal growth, those who once took her for granted begin to feel her absence as an emptiness that's hard to ignore. Because she's no longer the same. She has evolved. She was reborn, and she didn't do it to prove anything to anyone. She did it because somewhere deep within her pain, she realized a radical truth. The most important person she needed to choose was herself. Rebuilding yourself doesn't mean closing your heart or becoming cold. It means loving with an open heart while standing firmly on your own feet. It means being able to receive love without losing yourself in the process. It means looking love in the eye and saying, "I love you, but I don't need you to define who I am." On this new path, the man who returns, if he ever does, will find a different woman. A woman capable of deep love, but no longer willing to sacrifice herself for anyone. And if he doesn't return, it won't matter. Because she will have gained something far greater. Her own life, her purpose, her happiness. Jung captures this beautifully in Memories, Dreams, Reflections when he says, There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. You have chosen the path of awakening, the path of courage, and every step you take toward healing will be a quiet victory that echoes through your entire being. Today, you understand that it's not about getting him back, it's about getting yourself back. To master your emotions doesn't mean to suppress or deny them. It means learning to navigate them consciously, with strength and grace, reclaiming your personal power. The difference between a woman who is unforgettable and one who is forgotten lies in her ability to regulate her emotional impulses, especially in moments of deepest vulnerability, when a man begins to pull away. A woman's instinctive urge is to seek answers, to initiate contact, to demand explanations. This is human, this is understandable. But it is in these very moments that her true emotional value is defined. Not by whether she acts from fear, but by whether she chooses to act with awareness and self-love. Carl Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, observed that the greatest obstacle to growth is not pain itself, but our resistance to facing it. The projection of our inner conflicts onto the outer world. When we allow anxiety to dictate our actions, we project that anxiety onto others, placing overwhelming pressure on the relationship. But when we can hold space for our emotions, without demanding, chasing, or pleading, we rise above the storm and become a beacon of stability. Emotional mastery, then, is the ability to witness the inner storm without becoming it. It is the understanding that feeling fear, sadness, or uncertainty is natural, but actions driven by these emotions only distance us from what we truly desire, building healthy, loving relationships founded on mutual respect. This is where we must understand the key difference between healthy desire and toxic attachment. The desire to be with someone is natural, even beautiful, but emotional dependency on that person's presence to feel worthy destroys any possibility of genuine love. Unlike desire, attachment stems from inner emptiness and convinces us that our happiness depends on another person. By giving away our power in this way, a woman who knows how to manage her emotions does not deny her feelings, but she also doesn't allow them to control her. She may deeply miss a man, yet still choose not to call him. She may long for a reply, yet still keep her silence. She may feel the urge to reach out, yet still maintain her composure. This inner strength is neither cold nor distant. It is the highest expression of self-love. It is the ability to say to oneself, "My worth does not change based on someone's presence or absence. I am enough. I am whole." And this energy is so powerful, so magnetic, that it defies explanation. It can only be felt. You feel it in the way you walk, in your gaze, in the way you exist in the world. A woman who doesn't need to be chosen to understand her worth radiates a frequency no man can ignore. Emotional mastery doesn't just transform your relationships, it transforms your entire life. It frees you from emotional roller coasters driven by external circumstances and allows you to take steady, confident command of your emotional destiny. And when a woman reaches this point, at a certain level of maturity, she stops being just an option. She becomes a conscious choice, one that is pursued and deeply admired. Jung also reminds us in his work on the psychology of transference that he who looks outside dreams. He who looks inside awakens. Emotional mastery is exactly that awakening, the shift that allows you to stop searching outward for what can only be found within. Today, you understand that managing your emotions isn't about denying your humanity, but about honoring it. It's not about suppressing your desires, but recognizing them without allowing them to define your worth. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being unshakable. Because in the end, a woman who has mastered her inner world inevitably begins to influence the outer one, without chasing it. On the path of a woman who has done the inner work, there comes an inevitable and blessed moment when she realizes a liberating truth. She is not here to be chosen by someone else. She is here to choose herself every single day. To remain loyal to her essence, and to build a life so rich, full, and authentic that her well-being no longer depends on the presence or absence of another person. When a woman reaches this level of consciousness, her energy transforms radically. She no longer seeks approval, love, or validation of her worth. She becomes the source of such powerful self-love that those around her are left with only two choices: rise to meet her level, or walk away. In both cases, she wins. Carl Jung, in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, reminds us that an unlived life is a disease from which one can die. Living in the hope of being chosen, postponing happiness until someone finally sees you and approves of your worth to be with you or to merely acknowledge you, while still withholding true presence, is to slowly die. On the other hand, choosing yourself is to heal. It is to live. When a woman stops being a backup plan in a man's life, and instead becomes a reward that can only be earned by someone truly worthy, something powerful happens. She ceases to be a passive possibility in someone's mind and becomes an unforgettable force. She doesn't beg for love, plead for attention, compete, or chase. She simply is, and in that authenticity lies her irresistible magnetism. If he comes back, it will only be because, in your absence, he felt the emptiness of your absence, the weight of being chased, not chosen. It happened because, in the silence of your departure, he realized that no one else radiates the same light, the same serene strength that you do. And if he doesn't return, you'll understand that he was never truly yours to begin with, and that your journey, far from being in vain, led you back to yourself. Because in the process, you reclaimed something priceless. Your dignity, your inner peace, your emotional freedom. Always remember, you are not here to be completed, you are already whole. You are not here to be approved of, your very existence is enough. You are not here to live through someone else's eyes. You are here to look into your own reflection and smile with pride. Jung said that those who do not become themselves become a reflection of others' expectations. Today, you choose to be a voice, not an echo. A path, not someone else's destination. And it is in this moment, when you no longer need to be chosen, that your energy becomes so authentic, so radiant, so magnetic, that those who once took you for granted will feel your absence as an unbearable emptiness they can no longer ignore. But by then, it won't be about them, it will be about you. And the unshakable love you've finally cultivated within yourself. If this message resonated with your soul and inspired you to see yourself in a new light, subscribe now and join me on this journey toward personal power, self-love, and transformation. Because this is only the beginning. The beginning of your best version.